Amanda here from DMG, and finally I have book 2 of Elden Ring Guide by Future Press. I know it's been a long haul to get this. I'm not going to get into that. I think we've waited long enough. I just want to get straight on and do the review on this book. So as I always say at the beginning of these, I will do this as spoiler free as I can, but obviously you will see some things that are to do with the game in order for me to show you how the book operates, how it looks, how they set stuff out. You are going to see some things. However, what I try to do is keep it at the beginning of the chapters, where it's usually the beginning parts of the game, so it's pretty much the first things that you'll see, so hopefully it's not really spoiling anything too significant. So I've put the two together. I will put a link. I've already done a review on book 1. I will put a link at the end of the video so that you can take a peek at book 1's review if you haven't seen that already. And then just before we get into looking at the book itself, what I would say is, looking at just a little peek at it, I would definitely say that these are effectively one book. It's one half and one half. They do work, I think, as a complete thing. But really what we want to do is take a look at this and see what's what. So let's get going. So first of all, as always, let's look at the construction of the book, for want of a better word. So it's a hardback. I really like the simplicity of it, but yeah, it's very dramatic, isn't it? And so was the cover of book 1, and I really like that. We've got a ribbon so we can mark our place as well, which I always appreciate. I love the fact that it's in the gold, which kind of really goes with the theme and the colours. I really like that. I really do always personally like a ribbon. If possible, I would like 2, but there's only 1 in this case, as far as I can see. The actual paper itself, if we get in, is coated paper, good quality, nice thickness, you can hear, and you can see how it's beautifully coated, nice quality paper. In addition, in book 1 we got this amazing huge map, but in this one we get these gorgeous images. We get 4 beautiful little mini posters with it. I don't know if that's an Amazon thing or whether it is part of the package that you get generally. So first of all, we have our introduction. I haven't read any of it yet. And then we go to our index and table of contents, I should say. So we've got here a legend telling us about different icons. And you can see it's got this beautiful image here. Then we have a volume 2 overview, and then we have table of contents. So just to explain the difference, this is something that I've seen, particularly with Future Press. I think I've seen it with some of the others as well, is they do a more generic sort of chapter and then they go into the details of that chapter. So what we've got here is combat guide, bestiary, been practicing on that one, your arms and equipment, extras. So it says it's offering advice about creating builds, farming, new game plus, etc. And then it's got an interview which I am dying to read with Mr. Miyazaki himself, so that I think will be really interesting to read. So going into more detail, what they say is, for example, like chapter 1, they give like a little paragraph explaining what that is, like I just read what the extras was. I didn't read it in complete detail. So then under here, under table contents, it's got chapter 1 combat guide, and then it says what these things are. So terms, PvP, PvE, stats, secondary stats, movement, combat basics, damage, weaknesses, buffs, debuffs, etc, etc. So it goes through precisely the things and what page those are on. So that's your generic overview of the chapter. That's your sort of more specific contents and the page numbers for them. Okay, Oh gosh, look at that. Wow. This is the problem with the lights for the camera and the coated pages. You do get a bit of reflection, so apologies. I'm doing my best to let you see, but look at that. Isn't that incredible? I mean, what an opening page. So this is chapter 1, our combat guide. First of all, it says lexicon of terms. I think that's just a posh way of saying here's a list and what they words and what they mean in view of what we've got here. So they've got PvE and what the terms are. So area effect, and then it says, you know, an ability that when activated it has an effect to take place over an area in the game, blah blah blah. So it basically explains what different terminology means in view of how they're using it in the book. Then we come to combat guide itself. Then they talk about stats. Again, I really like the fact that there's this beautiful artwork in here. Again, look at that. It's just so stunning. And even the little pictures are very crisp and detailed, and the colours are very beautifully printed. Again, I mean, look at that. You can't really complain on the print quality at all. Definitely really, really nicely done. And it's just talking about those different terminology and details on what those things mean as far as I can see. So for example, we've got vigour, endurance, faith, strength and dexterity, which is all interesting information. And then they've got certain items and how they affect that particular stat, I guess you'd call it. Yeah, I suppose it's a stat. So strength and dexterity, and you've got these items, and it says strength increasing items, dexterity increasing items, etc. So you've got that there. Okay. And then that just continues on. And then we've got secondary stats, which you can't see the title, but hopefully you can get a view. Again, beautiful artwork. Same sort of thing. You've got a paragraph explaining it. Then you've got at the side these little boxes that show you different things that can increase your stats in that particular area. So if you're going, I guess, for a particular build, that would be very helpful. And then we've got the different defenses: magic defense, lightning defense, etc. And then we've got here talking about movement. So you've got walking, sprinting, rolling. And then over here we've got about stealth. And then we've got combat basics here. So we've light attacks, strong attacks, blocking. Then we've got melee, spell casting. Again, beautiful imagery. And then we've got a paragraph talking about that. So then we've got damage types and special weaknesses. By the way, I would suggest that this sort of chapter is the sort of chapters that you can read in advance of the game, and it would actually help. Whereas some of them, obviously, you might think, if I look at that later section of that chapter in perhaps the bestiary, then you're going to see like your final boss or something, and you don't want to see that. So, but this one and in the other book as well, there's some chapters that just are gameplay mechanic type chapters, and I definitely think they're worth reading. They really help perhaps understand the actual way that the game operates and plays. So here we've got like weapon damage and scaling. Now that's always something I think is really helpful. Again, more images. I love these little images that you get, and then you've got the slightly bigger ones. It's just really nice to fill the book with all of that. I really like it. Then we've got other stuff to do with that. So affinities, ailments, so like status ailments such as poison, etc. And then it talks about buffs and debuffs, and it says there's different buffs from multiple sources. They're best separated into 9 groups, and then it tells you what they are. So main hand, offhand, self group, healing, stamina, fall, roll, and miscellaneous. And then it says here weapon, main hand, and then it talks about the different buffs that you can have, I guess, for that. And it carries on here. So when we look at here on this next page, you can see that this is going to be exactly the same as what I'm just going to show you. It's just bigger, more of it, but I just want to give you the idea of what they're doing. So they're showing you here a particular buff, how it lasts, adds what, and the scaling, damage, So, and then it gives you a little symbol, which I guess is the symbol that you see on your screen. Yeah, so it's showing all of those, and there are so many, as you can see. So I think that's going to be really, really helpful. And look, here's the debuffs here. Not as many as buffs, so that's less to worry about. Then we've got about tactics, defensive tactics. So defense is healing, deflection, understanding stance and poise. So again, it just talks about that, like as in staggers and poise, neutral poise, flat poise, etc., etc. Again, lots of beautiful artwork for you to look at, which is always really nice. And also that artwork's often helpful. So for example, it says underneath here, small enemies can often be staggered. And it's got a little picture. So it's relevant to what's happening on the page. They're not just picking some random pictures and popping them in. So I often find that really helpful as well, because you can see kind of what's happening. It just gives you a visual on that. And then we got PvP combat and information on that, online trading, on blah blah, etc. All about fundamentals of PvP, poison parrying, and then we go to chapter 2. So this was our first chapter, all about combat. So it's a pretty big chapter. But first of all, let's just admire the beautiful artwork again. I love the fact that they're doing this double page spread on the beginning of the chapters. Then we go to the first page. Now this is what I suspected they would do. What Future Press do is they do a couple of pages explaining how the chapter's going to work. So what we've got here is, using this chapter, it says they're divided into 3 distinct categories according to overall strength and covered in this order: regular, strong and boss. So that's good. So the first ones we're going to see will be regular. We won't go up to the second and third ones, but at least by looking at just regular enemies, we're not really giving anything too major away. So then what it says is down here about using the chapter. So we've got here a little page, so it's showing you the page, and then it is putting little markers to show you what certain parts of that page are for. So obviously, first of all, we've got an image, and it says that this is stance and poise and the bonus damage category. So that's up here. Then in this section here, not this little bit here, but this one below it, is enemy variance and drops. Then the one above that, that little bit there, is damage type resistance and status ailment resistance. And again, each part has a little paragraph, as you can see. And then over here we've got preparation and environment, key tactics here, which is slightly highlighted. You can just see, I think, that it's slightly highlighted. This is obviously a boss page that they're talking about, but I am assuming that essentially the principles will be the same on the others. Then boss variant, key tactics, boss variance is down here. It doesn't say what that is, but I'm assuming that's just like a general descriptive chapter paragraph. Then down here we've got attacks, and then we've done that one as well. So it's talking about that. And then over here on this page we have got enemy categorization. So it's talking about how they've categorized each enemy, and it's said here, as I read, that they've separated them into regular, strong and bosses, and it's just describing here how they've made the decision, you know, which goes into what. Then they talk about enemy families. I'm not sure what that means, but let's have a look. It says, within all three primary categories, there are some groups of enemies that are similar in appearance, theme and behaviour. We have grouped these similar but functionally distinct enemies together as families. And then they talk about enemy special states. So, for example, frenzied or mounted down here, and it discusses, like, mounted, a few strong class enemies will be encountered on horseback, kind of obvious, but so it's just discussing the different states that they could come in. And then that carries on to the following page, and then we've got bonus damage categories, and then you've got boss fights against multiple enemies and single targets, health gauges, multiple health gauges, prioritizing targets. So again, it's just discussing all of these things. Then it's talking about general boss tactics. There's another picture. So I know that at the moment you're not getting a full page overview. I will let you have a look at that in a minute, but I just wanted you to see a little bit more detail of the page. Then we've got status ailments, and then we've got skills and evasive enemies. So that's the overview of sort of how to use the chapter. Okay, so what I wanted to just show you here was the side of the page. You can probably see I've just turned the book around, and this is on the right page, the right hand side page along the edge, and you can see there's like just a slight coloration. What we've got is chapter 2, and then you've got regular enemies, strong enemies, bosses and special enemies, and what it's done is sort of embolden the regular enemies, so you know that's the section you're in. If we go further forward, and I don't want to show you them, obviously, we are looking here at strong enemies and then bosses. So the good thing is that you can see where you are. So if you want to flick through very carefully and you're like, oh no, I don't want strong enemies because that's not what I'm looking for, I'm sure these will be indexed as well, but it just helps you know, oh, I'm in the boss section, I don't want to see that, quick. And so if I just show you, I don't know if you can just see at all, can you see along the edges here, you can just see the colour, there's like a darker bit there, and that's where that's been made like a grey colour along the side, where you've got weapons, etc. And then you've obviously got your bosses in the sort of browny colour, and not your bosses, your enemies I should say, in that sort of tan colour. And then at the beginning here we've got like a greeny tone, but it's quite a small chapter and it doesn't show as much, but you can just see it if you're looking at it in life. So that again is another way, it just catches the side. So if you're thinking, oh, I want weapons and stuff, you can go to that section. If you want enemies, you can go to that section, etc. So now let's find where we were, which was here. So this is our first enemy, and I'm going to stick with this. I'm not going to go to your strong enemies or bosses or anything like that. I don't want to make any spoilers. It's pretty much going to be the same layout. It will probably be double pages for some of the bigger enemies because there'll be more information, etc., but the principle will be the same. So what we have is we've got a page with, as they described, an image. We've got some images down the bottom here. We've got stats down the side. I will come in and let you see. We've got a paragraph with some general information. It's talking about, there's obviously 3 types of this commoner enemy, and they've got one with a short sword, one with a spear and one with a torch pole. So it's just discussing those. Oh, and it's got some more over here as well. So it's just discussing the differences there. And when we look here, this is where we were talking about, we've got the different status ailments, damage resistance, where you'll find them. the HP, the runes, the sort of things they drop, etc. So giving you lots of information on that, and that's just repeated here on the next enemy as well, and it carries on exactly the same way all the way through here. So that's your regular enemies, and then exactly the same here for your strong enemies, same principle. And then your bosses is what I said, they're double page, so I don't want you to see them any more than I want to see them, but it's essentially the same thing, it's just there's more information. Each category of enemies will have just that little bit extra information, but the principle is going to be the same. So we know here now that the enemies go all the way from here to here, so a lot going on there. And then we've got this another beautiful image for our arms and equipment, basically weapons and armor and other varying equipment. So again, we've got that section, that page that shows us how chapter is going to be set out. They're starting off with weapons and shields. This section will lay out all of their stats, provide overviews and recommendations within each of 38 categories of weapons and shields. Categories are shown in the in-game sorting order, and the arms within each category are then arranged alphabetically within the subcategories of standard and special arms. So then it talks about using this section. So as before, it just sets out, here's the little section of the page. I don't think this will be the whole page. Weapon type and skill, requirements, bolstering cost, weight, guard boost, attack data, and then this section is item description, effects and acquisition. And then over this page they're talking about affinity and upgrade data. It says the values shown in these tables are those that change based on affinities and upgrade levels of a weapon. So that's just giving that information. So for example, here it's got, say, fire, and how that affects that and scales that particular weapon. So then we go to the actual, so we're in weapons and shields, and then we're going to section 1, and again here we've got down the side different sections. So we've got weapons and shields, armor, talismans, sorceries, incantations, ashes of war, unique skills, spirit ashes, and items. So we are currently in daggers, which is one of the subcategories in weapons and shields. So we're going to take a look at one of these in more details. Okay, so here we've got bloodstained dagger, and it tells you the type, the skill, sell value, bolstering cost, requirements, etc. Information about it, acquisition, so where you get it, I guess. Yep. And then we've got the affinity, the attack, the scaling, and the ailments. So the stats that you may or may not need. So that is basically all the same across here. So this is like daggers. Then we've got straight swords. I'm not going to go through every one because that is just too many. There's a huge section on weaponry here. But I just wanted to say, so we've got here, these are going to be, like, they've got great swords, etc. So they've got all different sorts of things. And we've got twin blades, katanas, etc. So lots of things going on under weapons. We've got bows, the shields. So now we get to the section that's called armor. So that's your next section. Again, here it tells you how to use this section. I think it's similar, but obviously it's armor, so it's going to set out like the name of the armor, the basic stat, defense and resistances, so slightly different there. What we've got here is a picture of the armor. Then we've got each little element of it. Then we've got description, and then we've got the stats on here as well, and then acquisition, where you can find it and the effect of using it, I guess. So that's just the details to show you how they set out on the armour, which is slightly different. Then we've got talisman, and again they're just setting out how to use the section, and it's a little bit more simplified. You've just got information about it, the effect, and where you can get it. So a little bit more simple. And then we've got sorceries. Again, similar idea. Here we've got what they call, I guess this is a subcategory. This is Academy sorceries, and then it explains about that, and then it sets out what those are. Again, I don't want to go too close and too detailed on some of these. The principle is the same. You're getting a little paragraph about it, about the stats and where you can get it, and a little image of what it would look like, I guess, when you see it on the screen if you've got it equipped. And then we've got incantations, and it just explains about that. And again, similar idea, same sort of thing with the stats set out again. Ashes of War, again, a page showing you how to use this section. And again, this is slightly different in that you've got a little bit more symbols at the top. I'm assuming here it's explaining what that means. So it's saying that they're compatible affinities. So it's setting out, so for example here, I don't know if you can see that of that big bunch that are shown, that I guess are affinities, only one is strongly coloured, so I guess only one is compatible, whereas this one, all of them pretty much are coloured, so I guess all of them are compatible. So there you've got that, and then you've got about it, where you can use it, so what weapon, I guess, what's the effect is, and where you can acquire it. So again, very similar. Then we've got unique skills. So this is a unique skill permanently affixed to special weapons. I guess it's a weapon that has a particular thing. I don't know, maybe one that's got fire on it. So then we've got Spirit Ashes, and it's basically allies in spirit form that you can summon. And again, it sets out using the section, so it's pretty similar to what we've had before. It talks about basically the spirits, HP, its stance, usage cost, damage resistance, etc, etc, the behaviour of it, and then just more information here about it generally. And then we've got standard ashes, and then it goes into specifics, as I said, breaking that down into those stats. And then finally in this section we come to items, again setting out how to use this section. I think it's pretty similar, but there's very slight differences in what they're showing in the statistics, etc. So it's just setting out what those particular things are. It gives like a little section, like as if an example of one of the things that it's put on the page, and then it's just pointing to those and explaining what those items are. So for example, here we've got maximum carried, FB cost, sell value, description, effect, crafting ingredient or not, acquire and how, usability. So this is obviously very slightly different to the other things in that it can be used rather in a different way to perhaps a weapon or whatever. So then we have here tools, and then it goes into those specific things. So let me see if I can, I think this first one is pretty basically starting off pretty near the beginning, I think. So it's just showing you there just as an example. Okay, because I saw it said Limgrave, which is pretty near the beginning. So there's just, again, pages of those items there. And then we've got something there a little bit bigger. I'm not going to go, as I said, I'm not going to go close on these ones because they're obviously getting more. So we've got something that's got a little bit more information. So it's got that stat box that we just looked at, but it's got also a paragraph about that. So it's just a little bit more to it. So here we have extras, and it says, with knowledge of the world's inhabitants and the arms, we must turn to the finer details of survival. Which combinations and are particularly potent in what situation. This chapter collects information that helps answer these and other questions for those who are dedicated to maximising. So advanced builds. So this is just looking at the different builds. Again, I don't want to get too close to things like this because I keep saying it, but I don't want there to be spoilers. It's basically looking at here a particular build. This is strength build, and it's got some nice little pictures. It's got a paragraph about that. It's got some stats and build requirements as an example, some weapons, etc. So I guess it's just examples of builds and how you can put those together and do that. So then we've got dexterity build, and different versions of that, intelligence, faith, etc. Then we've got New Game Plus. This is still under the extras section. So we've got New Game Plus. So it tells you what features are carried over to your New Game Plus and what features aren't. This just tells you all about your New Game Plus, as I said. And then your trophies and achievements. So this is, I think, a really good one if you're a completionist. This basically sets out what those trophies are. So it'll be platinum, gold, silver, and etc. All of that information there. Again, I don't want to sort of spoil any of that either in case you don't want to know what the trophies are. And then the bit that I'm really personally looking forward to, and you can see I've marked it up ready to go, is the interview with Mr. Miyazaki, and that's a couple of pages, as you can see, to say the least. It's a nice, I mean, it's got lots of beautiful artwork in there as well, so it's probably not as long as perhaps it appears, but I mean, all that stunning artwork with it, it just is incredible. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And then we've got our index here. So for the bestiary, we've got the index there, so you can, it's alphabetical for the enemies, but it also colorizes them. Now I'll bring you down so you can see, because I don't think names mean a lot. So you can see, hopefully here, it says regular, which is white, strong, sort of a grey blue. Boss is kind of a reddy russet colour. Major boss, oh golly, I don't like the sound of that, is yellow. And then down by the name, so if you know, like, oh, you've just come across whatever, let's say we've just come across the abductor, we then find out he's a strong beast, enemy, whatever you want to call him, and you can find information about him on page 104, so you could look him up, and because if you're stuck or whatever. Anyway, that's our index, and you've got your bestiary, we've got weapons and shields, then armour, another nice image with sorceries, ashes of war. So again, all this is in alphabetical order, items, etc, etc, and then credits and thanks, and the end of the book. So that is the book finished. I know it's kind of difficult to show you because I'm trying really hard not to give anything away, but hopefully it gives you a good idea of what it's like. You can see just the kind of detail that's gone into this is just amazing, and the quality, as always, is top notch. I'm Okay, so thank you so much for watching this with me. I hope that you have found this review helpful, the most current one, and I hope if you haven't watched this and you do watch this one, that you find that helpful as well, and it helps you decide whether these are the books for you. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed both reviews. I would love it if you could subscribe to the channel. I am trying to get this channel up to 1,000 subscribers so that I can get it monetized. My other channel, my main channel that I use, which is nothing to do with gaming, I'm already monetized for, but they won't allow me to monetize this one because I need so many subscribers. So I would be very grateful if you have enjoyed these reviews if you could subscribe and give it a thumbs up and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I would love to hear your comments because I always love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.